Good evening. Thank you all for joining us for our board meeting this evening. We are going to call our meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. Dr. Hooker, if you would conduct roll call for us.
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley,
Here.
Ms. Claudia Butts,
Here.
Ms. Linda Davis, Dr. Patricia Yeager,
Here.
Mr. Tim Denson,
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson,
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant,
Here.
Ms. Nicole Hull, and Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
Thank you. So we do have a quorum. We are going to move forward. We ask that you join us in a moment of silent meditation, and then after that, we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would join us for a moment of silent meditation. Thank you. If you're able, if you would please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We will move forward to item 2, and these are our recognitions and awards. Dr. Hooker?
At this time, I'll ask Dr. Cindy Moore to come to recognize our students tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker, and good evening, Dr. Gant, board members. We have a few recognitions tonight, but we'll start as we always do with our Employee of the Month for April. Our Employee of the Month this month is Ms. Anna Chandler Myers. Anna, would you come up to the stage while we talk about you? Let's give Anna a round of applause. Just stand up here. Mrs. Myers, who just recently married, very recently, correct? Yeah, is in her 3rd year as the music teacher at Barnett Shoals Elementary, and was nominated for the amazing work she does every day in growing the school's music program and giving her students many opportunities, both in and outside of the classroom, to gain a deeper love and appreciation of music. She writes that her favorite part of teaching is the connections I build with students through music. It makes my heart feel fulfilled when I see students inspired and excited about making music together. I love how it brings students of all backgrounds together. Her colleague, Kim Costello, who nominated her for this award, noted that this year, Mrs. Myers took a group of 4th and 5th grade students to the Classic Center here in Athens for the Georgia Elementary Honors Chorus, and that they also performed the national anthem at a UGA basketball game. How exciting for them. The musicals she and her students put on every year have also become so popular that they had to move them to Cedar Shoals High School auditorium to accommodate the crowds. Ms. Costello writes that Mrs. Myers strives to find all kinds of opportunities to show students how music can be fun and important and an outlet for them. I think it is amazing for the students to see how many opportunities there are in life, and she allows these to happen. Barnett Shoals principal Allison Noble writes that Mrs. Myers truly represents the values behind the title of CCSD Employee of the Month. Over the last 3 years, I have watched her grow as an individual and a professional. It is an honor to have such a dedicated educator as a member of our team. She is most deserving of this honor. Please join me again as we welcome her family, both from home and work, to the stage to have our picture taken with her, in congratulating our Employee of the Month, Anna Chandler Myers. Yeah. take a couple of pictures, and while we're doing that, I will once again say thank you. Very nice. And I love your sweater. That's going to look great. Thank you to the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce and all of the local businesses that contribute every month. It's really heavy. Be very careful. Yes, we put a lot of bricks. We want to thank all of the local businesses that contribute every month to our Employee of the Month gift bag. Please consider supporting these businesses as you're out and about in the community, because they support this program and many others at CCSD with their full vigor. Thank you. Next slide. And as a reminder that any member of the CCSD community, whether you're an employee, student, family member, board member, community member, you can nominate an employee for Employee of the Month. You can find additional details on our website. Next, we'd like to recognize one of the most distinguished members of this year's 2023 graduating class, who has received a very special recognition from the Georgia Department of Education. Aiden Dowling, please come to the stage to be recognized, and your parents may come with you. Dr. Hooker, I'll ask you to come down and present Aiden with his certificate as I share with you who Aiden is and what he has done. Aiden Dowling of Cedar Shoals High School is one of only 154 graduating seniors across the state to be selected this year for the Georgia Scholars Program. The program identifies and honors seniors who have achieved excellence in school and community life by carrying exemplary course loads during their 4 years of high school, performing excellently in all courses, successfully participating in interscholastic events at their schools and in their communities, and assuming leadership roles in extracurricular activities sponsored by their schools. Aiden is the co-founder and leader of the Cedar Shoals Energy Education Team, and he and his peers were recognized last year as National and Georgia Teams of the Year by the National Energy Education Development Project. Throughout his 4 years at Cedar Shoals, he has also served as a member of the school's award-winning Blueprints magazine and currently holds the position of Layout and Design Director as well as co-copy editor. In addition to his academic achievements, Aiden is an active member of the local community. Outside of school, he works weekly at the First Presbyterian Church of Athens as the Sunday morning manager. After graduation next month, Aiden plans to study computer science in college. He is awaiting final decisions from several schools before making a final decision on where to attend. At this time, I want to do two things. First, ask you in just a moment to join me in congratulating Aiden, but secondly, to invite his elementary school principal, Dr. Jennifer Scott, to join him on the stage. Aiden, we are so proud of you. Dr. Scott, I know that you are proud to see your work go from here to here. And Aiden, we want to hear from you and your family about where you go next. Because remember, no matter where you go, CCSD is where you started. Okay? Let's congratulate Aiden and his family again. Board members, can I ask you to come down and have a picture taken as well? This is a pretty big deal for you, but it's a big deal for Clark County School District too. So we want to get as many pictures as we can. Okay? So we'll ask the board to come down and then we'll move on. There you go. You guys should be good at this by now, right? Yeah, just make sure you can see Scott. Scooch in just a little bit more. Turn to the side just a little bit. There we go. All right. Look at him. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Next up this evening, we'd like to celebrate a large group of CCSD middle school students who competed in the Northeast Georgia Regional National History Competition back in February and have qualified for the state competition, which will be held next weekend at LaGrange College. The National History Day competition actively engages middle and high school students in the historical process, as students complete a program of research using both primary and secondary sources designed to investigate their topic and answer specific research questions. Students then showcase their research in one of the following categories: exhibit, paper, website, documentary, or performance. This year's theme is Frontiers in History: People, Places, Ideas. CCSD had a total of 24 students who qualified for the state competition by finishing in the top 3 of their representative categories at the regional competition. This includes 12 first-place finishers, all from Bernie Harris Lyons Middle School, who we invited to join us at tonight's meeting. We're very pleased to be joined by several of them. As I call your name, students, if you're here, please come to the stage. And if you'd like to bring your families with you, you may do that, okay? We'll start with the quartet of Ruby Nakashi, Olive Forrester, Gabriela Carcoma Vialta, and Amelia Aldridge. This team was named the overall junior division winners for their project, Radium Girls, an exhibit highlighting their research about a group of female factory workers in the early 20th century who contracted radiation poisoning while painting military watches and dials. The 4 students also won first place in the junior group exhibit category. Congratulations, girls. Let's have you just move over here because we want a picture of everybody together, so just step to the side. Thank you. Next, we have Ironia Davenport, who won the Southern History Award and first place in the junior individual paper category for her research paper on Henrietta Lacks, an African-American woman who was dying of cancer in 1951 when doctors at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, without her consent, removed a sample of cells from her cancerous tumor that became the source of the first immortalized cell line. Our other first place regional winners are rounded out by the following: Alex Suggs and Anthony Jacobo Acuna in the junior group documentary category for King Canute's Invasion. Let's get your picture first before we move on. Ariana Moffett and Amy Alvear in the junior group performance category for jazz. And Jackson Rushing, Jude Cranston, and Luis Alvarez in the junior group website category for Henry Ford. Let's give a big hand to all of these students, and let's have you move back to the middle to take a group picture, as well as the ones you see on the slide here from BHL, Clark Middle, and Coyle Middle, who also qualified for the state competition. And of course, we'd like to acknowledge the teachers and school-level coordinators who instructed and encouraged these students along the way. If their teachers and principals are here, we invite you to come up and let's memorialize this moment. From BHL, we'd like to specifically recognize Amy Haygood. From Clark Middle, Christopher Schell. And from Coyle Middle, Marcy Ashton. Thank you very much, and congratulations on a great job. And finally tonight, we'd like to recognize our district-level winners for this year's Young Georgia Artists Contest. Sponsored by the Georgia Language Arts Supervisors, GLAS, and the Georgia RISA Network, with support from the Georgia Department of Education, the competition is aimed at encouraging students across the state to develop an enthusiasm for and expertise in their writing. CCSD had a record number of entries in the contest this year. Do you see a theme here? And we're pleased to be joined tonight by some of our grade level winners. Again, when you hear your name, if you'd come up, Ms. Bland will hand you your certificate, and your families are welcome to come with you. For kindergarten, we have Sybil Vengnes from Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary, and I know that Sybil is here because we've already met. First grade, Ramon Carlos Carangal from Timothy Road Elementary. Come on up. Okay, we'll just ask you to move to the side just a little, and then we'll have you all come back out together. Go to Miss Carlin there. Or Miss Carlin, you come over to them. Wonderful. Second grade, Hazel Temples from Chase Street Elementary School. Is Hazel here? Third grade, Veda Lanham from Barnett Shoals Elementary. Fourth grade, grade level winner for the second year in a row, Eloise Chalmers from Timothy Road Elementary. Fifth grade, Trinity Simmons, Whit Davis Elementary. Sixth grade, Enza Kamagate, Bernie Harris Lyons Middle School. Ninth grade, Megan Miller, Clark Central High School. 10th grade, Myra Shivastov, Clark Central High School. 11th grade, Ava Van Hole, Cedar Shoals High School. And 12th grade, Alejandra Cesar Rios, Clark Central High School. Now, while you're up here, if you are a principal or a teacher at this school, of one of these students, or if you have a student who is not here, please join us and let's get a group picture. So come on up. Everybody look at Mr. Thompson. Smile. And thank you all very much. Congratulations. Now, we have one further recognition, but I don't believe this student was able to join us tonight. Hazel Temples, who was named regional second grade winner by the Northeast Georgia RISA for her entry Where the Bees Live, has qualified for the state competition which will be held in a few weeks. Tonight, we are very pleased to be joined by a representative from Northeast Georgia's RISA Growing Readers Program, Christy Holloway, who will recognize Hazel for the Regional Contest Award. So we'll briefly turn the floor over to her to tell us a little more.
Thank you. And even though Hazel isn't here tonight, of course, we would like to go ahead and honor her. But also to all the students who are here and your families, Thank you for being a part of Young Georgia Authors. I congratulate Clark County in having a record number of entries this year. What that says is that you are valuing literacy in all of your schools and encouraging teachers to encourage students to not only read and learn about all of the skills that are important to be a reader, but then transfer that into writing and to go a step further, and that is to be confident to express yourself. Writing is very personal, and so one, that's hard on the teacher. It's hard to teach and encourage a student to reveal what's inside them personally. And two, it's very hard on a student to feel confident about that. So what an accomplishment to look as a district and say we've had more students than ever encouraged by their teachers to write this way. And then additionally, congratulations on having a student's writing move on to the state level of competition. That writing was judged against all of the schools in Northeast Georgia. So what an honor. And I'll tell you just a side note, a personal opinion, I think it's one of the best second grade writings I've ever seen. So I won't be surprised if there's an additional honor coming your way once I have nothing to do with the state judging, but it's my opinion from reading lots and lots of writing. This piece that Hazel wrote was incredible. So congratulations on so many levels, and I do appreciate you allowing me to come and be a part of your celebration. Thank you.
We'll make sure that Hazel gets this. And before I turn the floor back over, I will just remind you all, it was another great day in Clark County schools. And if there's ever any doubt that great things are happening here, just roll tape. Dr. Hooker, Dr. Gant, that concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore, and thank you, participants, award winners, for your efforts. Thank you, Dr. Gant.
Thank you. And congratulations to all of our award winners and parents. All right, we are going to move forward. Okay, we're going to move forward with our board announcements. So I am going to open up the floor for any of my colleagues to share any announcements that you have.
I just wanted to thank staff and for these fantastic cards that they created for us to be able to, so that we're all of us board members have these nice reminders about best policies for us to engage with whenever we're doing this important work, and to make sure that we're all working as a team here on this body. So I really appreciate staff putting those together.
I'll just say thank you for allowing us to participate in the NSBA conference in Orlando. It was a fantastic conference. We went and got a lot of ideas and got to see a lot of different districts with their efforts for inclusivity, for proper governance, for just everything. So many innovative ideas. It was very refreshing to know that Clark County is up there with them. I think we could be presenting those things. So it was an amazing conference. Looking forward to sharing some of those ideas with my colleagues and with Dr. Hooker so that we can just keep pushing forward and making it Clark County even better.
I would just like to say thank you for the flower sent during my father's death, and thank you for the prayers and the calls. We really did appreciate it.
I wanted to thank everyone. I went to the new board member training in Perry this past Tuesday and learned a great deal and learned about how far we have come and just how well we are doing compared to some of our sister boards throughout the state. So it was good to go. So thank you.
Thank you all for those report outs. We hope to receive some information. I know, like, we talked a little bit about the PowerPoints and the information that we received at the at NSBA, and so there will be some follow-up there. But yeah, I want to echo everything that's been said. Are there any additional announcements from board colleagues? All right, thank you. So we will move forward to our public comment. And I think we have 2 speakers for public comment. I want to just remind us that our public comments, you will have 3 minutes to share your perspectives and your thoughts with the board. Any type of personal attacks will not be tolerated. You'll be asked to take your seat if that occurs. We have, as I mentioned, 2 people that are here tonight. The first person is Carla Pastor, and then the second person is Michael Campbell. Carla?
Good evening. My name is Carla Pastor. I am a Clark Central High School senior. I'm the battalion commander of the JRTC program, and I've been in the program for all 4 years. I do not plan on joining the military after high school. I plan on continuing my education in college. In the spring of 2024, I will begin my classes in the Zoo Animal Technology program provided at Santa Fe College. The JRTC program has prepared me for college by building my confidence, leadership, public speaking, teamwork, and many more skills. This program goes beyond military education, and it prepares students for life after high school and pushes them to be better citizens. I'm here to advocate for the approval of a 45-foot rappel/rock climbing wall using East Blot's funds. The JRTC program is a hands-on program. We focus on involving cadets more in the program to show that we are more than textbook lessons. We take our lessons outside of our JRTC building, for example, to our obstacle course, rope bridge area, even the Cedar Shoals campus. Once a year, we will take our cadets to the Cedar Shoals to experience their rappel tower. These lessons build leadership skills as well as teamwork, and this activity encourages cadets to overcome their fears and pushes them to be more risk-taking. Having a rappel tower of our own will improve our curriculum confidence course. The JRTC program is beneficial to any student whether they want to join the military or not. I not only gained skills that benefit my future, I have also built lifelong bonds and many memories in the program. The building of this rappel tower will not only introduce our cadets to new experience, it will also encourage them to be fearless. I think it would be a good investment of taxpayer dollars in the JRTC program. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker is Michael.
Good evening. My name is Michael Campbell, and I'm a senior at Clark Central High School and a 4-year cadet and JRTC program at Clark Central. When I first started ROTC, I saw throughout the class, even as now as a senior, that people will drop out of the class because they feel that it is boring or they're not doing enough within those first 10 days of school, but you're not doing that in none of your classes. You're going over the syllabus, getting used to the expectations and different things like that throughout the classroom. In the last couple of years, we've been able to add air rifles and archery into the curriculum, which allows for students to be able to connect to ROTC in a different way, and it really pulls them into the classroom. And I think using the East West taxpayer dollars to build a rappel tower will be another pull factor for those kids that are looking for a class for them to take. Next, this fall, I'll be attending LSU University on a 4-year ROTC scholarship, everything covered, and that is because of ROTC and the experiences that I've been able to learn through that classroom, and I wouldn't be the person I am today without it. I'm also a 4-year athlete at Clark Central playing football and baseball, and I've been able to see the benefits of the taxpayer dollars going towards the turf field at Clark Central, as well as different renovations relating to the softball fields and other athletic facilities at Clark Central. And as someone who has gone through ROTC and being able to see the benefits of both sides, football isn't paying for my LSU tuition, and neither is baseball. So I'd just like to say that ROTC is a way for students to be able to further their education and take that into the workforce and into the military. So the rappel tower would be a great way for other people to stay engaged in ROTC for 2, 3, 4 years to be able to learn those different skills, including public speaking, communication, the social skills that you need to be successful after high school. And I think the rappel tower would be a way to bring those kids in, not only just to bring them in, but to keep them in and to be able to come to things like this and talk to the board and be able to do different things like that. And the rappel tower is also a way where they're able to go through different fears like heights and different things like that. It's a good bonding experience, and I think that'd be a great way to keep them engaged in ROTC and be able to see the good things that come out of it at the end. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for those comments and for those comments or thoughts that require a response. Our district will reply within the next 10 business days. So thank you very much. All right, we are moving forward to item 5, and that is to amend and or adopt the agenda. The floor is open.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Hall, a second by Mr. Denson. Okay. Any follow-up questions or discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda before us, if you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The same signs. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. All right, we are going to move forward to item 6, and this is executive session. The floor is open for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent, as well as to discuss or vote to authorize the settlement of any matter which may be properly discussed in executive session in accordance with paragraph 1 of OCGA section 50:14(2), or to authorize negotiations to purchase, dispose of, or lease property. 2, to authorize ordering an appraisal related to the acquisition or disposal of real estate. 4, to enter into a contract to purchase, dispose of, or lease property, subject to approval in a subsequent public vote. Or 5, to enter into an option to purchase, dispose of, or lease real estate, subject to approval in a subsequent public vote. The floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Just want to note here that if there are not any follow-up questions, we don't have to enter into executive session, but if you have specific questions, we can. I think this may have been mentioned in the email that I sent. If you have any questions about anything on the agenda related to these two items.
So just for clarification, the items that we'd be entering into executive session for are already on the agenda? Okay.
So we have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. Okay. All right.
So there are items 14 and 15. Just for clarification for anybody who wanted to know.
I have a couple of follow-up questions that I could use executive session time, but I don't think it'll take long. Okay. But we have a motion and a second. Let's take action. All in favor of entering into executive session, if you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs. Ms. Hull and Mr. Evans, were you in favor of or?
We were in favor.
Okay, great. Okay, so that motion passes. We will go into executive session at 6:41 p.m. Okay, we're gonna, I'm gonna open the floor for a motion to exit executive session.
I move to exit executive session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hensley, and was that second by Ms. Hall? Okay. All in favor of exiting executive session, if you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? All right, we exited executive session at 7:01 p.m. Okay, we are going to move forward with our informational items here. And we have reports from our early Head Start Policy Council meeting. We have the Athens Community Career Academy report, and then the SPLOS monthly report. Are there any questions or any follow-up information or further discussion? Dr. Yeager.
So about the SPLOST, the two public speakers that talked about this rappel tower, I didn't see that mentioned in the SPLOST report. Is that coming up next month, or where are we at with the rappel tower?
Right now, we're just still evaluating it as far as we've looked at, where it would be located on the site. We've had their wish list desires as far as what it would be and got a preliminary price. And then we're kind of prioritizing fixing the leaky roof at Clark Central versus a rappel tower and other things. So we're trying to kind of prioritize what we have in front of us with the extra money from 5 before we commit to any other thing. So that's kind of where it is.
So it's not an action item for the board at this point?
Correct.
And when do you expect it to be an action item for the board?
It'll be several months before we get to that point because I want to try to get some other projects that we're trying to bid for this summer to know what those costs are before I can say we have money, or that would be, or make a recommendation to Dr. Hooker to bring to the board if we're able to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With the other items, I guess, related to that, and this, I read through the SPLOS report as well. But with those other items from that SPLOS, I think if I recall that the rappel tower was one that, I want to say, I can't remember if it was last school year, that there were estimates that were done. And so I know you mentioned that there are some things before.
Right.
What is the deciding factor as far as the timeline, I guess is my question. If those things that are before it are, if those things are over a certain amount, or?
Yeah, basically if we use up our surplus money from 5, then that would preclude us doing the rappel tower.
Okay. And do we know, or does the SPLOS committee know what those things are? I know you mentioned the roof.
Right now this summer we have 2 big roofing projects because of buildings that are leaking. Old Gaines, Earth Shelter, we're having to redo that roof structure. And then at Clark Central, the main building is having to be re-roofed, as well as masonry repair to where we've got some cracked brick on the parapets. So those kind of take a priority over, say, an enhancement to a program to where it's not like they don't have access to a rappel tower. They have one at Cedar Shoals that they can go to. So again, this is, trying to prioritize life safety, building systems, leaky roofs over an enhancement to an existing program.
Mm-hmm. And I guess from what I am able to see with the SPLOS report, there are, I know when you all gave us like an overview, I think we were at Whitehead of like SPLOS and how things work as
Yes.
far as like all of the updates and things like that have to happen. Are there contingency funds so that projects such as these for programs, because these programs are critical when we're talking about our mission to keep kids involved and in school, is there a contingency so that like when things like unexpected things come up, like a roof, like that's no way that we could, you know, we
Right.
would see that as one of those
Right,
yearly.
we carry contingency from the surplus funds that we collected versus what we already had earmarked for, you know, tier 1, tier 2 projects. So a lot of, you know, some of that money has been spent on some of the programs we've done at the Career Academy, like the welding program, the culinary program. Those weren't ever on the original list. So that, again, those are additional programs that we funded with those surplus funds. Now we're kind of getting down to the end, you know, of SPLOST 5 to see what we got left and kind of look at our priorities of what's outstanding. I think Karen actually has a waiting list for students for early learning. And there's discussion about trying to renovate the 5th grade wing, which would be another 8 classrooms, which we would fund out of contingency. So we've got to weigh the priorities of, we have 160 students that we could serve versus money that we're going to spend on a rappel tower when they have one that they can go use. So again, those are how we kind of look at the priorities, make recommendations to Dr. Hooker and the team, and then come back to you guys.
Thank you. Any additional questions about any of the informational items? Early Head Start, Community Career Academy, or SPOS? Okay. We'll move forward to the board community reports. This is item 8. And we have, I think we have a summary there of, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Item 8, our board community reports. And so this is our community oversight committee and SPOS reports. Any follow-up questions there?
Madam Chair, I think
Miss-
we've pretty
yes.
much covered the big portions of it in executive session, and also what John just talked about with the rappel tower. Those are the most pressing issues. From my understanding, we're going to be entering into SPLOST 6 stuff here soon. Is that correct, John? And unfortunately, I wasn't at the meeting on Tuesday because I was at the new board training. But I did reach out to him and Mr. Sams and got the information. But what we just asked were the questions that I was going to present on. So thank you. It makes my life easier when you do that.
All right, any additional questions or discussion? Okay. Moving forward to our advisory board reports, we have a summary there of our boards. Any follow-up questions or discussion? Okay. Moving forward to our board president report. The only thing that I have, and Dr. Anderson, I'll also after this defer to you in case I'm forgetting something, but we attended, were you going to report on this? The district attended a meeting yesterday with Mayor Gertz and Manager Williams, as well as Mr. Bradley. And so I attended and Dr. Moore. And so the purpose of that meeting was to discuss a partnership, entering a partnership with Clark County School District to determine how funds will be spent. But first, also identifying a process, an equitable process, a process that allows us to have representative from the community, but basically to determine how the remaining funds, their ARPA funds, will be spent for youth development / gang prevention or violence prevention, and then the second area was workforce development. And so Dr. Moore and Dr. Hooker have a summary here of just some background information, like there's money that's left that has to be spent, how much money, what our general timeline is for the board to consider that. And if you would take a look at that. I can't remember if this is a draft, right? Okay. And if you can you say that again, Dr. Moore, in your mic? It literally was just created. The meeting was yesterday, yeah. And so this is just a draft that will be in the board update, but we wanted to let you know to look for it in the board update, because while it's not, of course, the needs in the community are urgent. The deadline is not tomorrow, but we do need to begin having conversations if it's something that we're interested in partnering with. And Dr. Moore and I will take we can add some additional information, but in a nutshell, the Clark County government still has money. And they don't want to be the only governing body to determine how are we going to what's the best way to spend this youth development money, or with workforce development, because there is some overlap with some of the priorities that we have for the district. And so they would like to join forces. What that looks like, they have proposed something tentative, but they were very open to what that might look like, from selecting a community steering committee that is not necessarily exclusively made up of board members, but individuals in the community to determine what is a priority, and all the way really down to the actual interventions and programs that will be implemented. And so we just wanted to put this on your radar. This will be in the board update that's typically sent out over the weekend for us to consider. Dr. Anderson.
I just want one point of clarification. Is this to continue the conversation that started a couple years ago that had a meeting where we all met jointly and did like a working sort of session?
I don't know that it was, at least in my mind, it was not intentionally connected to that, but I see it as an extension of that. But I think that, and Dr. Moore, correct me, but I think that ACC government has a little bit more clarity. Like, we went into that meeting that just like, we're gonna donate this amount, y'all donate this amount, and let's just figure it out here. I think the position that they've taken is we don't necessarily need to be the ones figuring it out. We don't need to be the ones that are in the room. Obviously, we'll have to take action and make the final decision, but we want to have an intentional way that we include the community, basically, in how we go about spending youth development money. And because the Clark County government is really not in the business of youth development, they're not working directly with youth, their priorities are not necessarily centered around youth, the school districts is. So they are saying, hey, we want to partner, so it is related to that, but I don't think, at least it wasn't shared with me that was a continuation. But to me, it is related, because at that time, we talked about how we're going to spend ARPA money. Well, we didn't leave with any concrete ideas, but we did at that time identify that there was a need and there was a desire to do something. We just didn't know what that something was. Dr. Hooker and Dr. Moore, I'm gonna defer to you all in case it's any additional information or any other points of clarification. Mr. Denson?
Thank you. I did have just one clarifying question. It's on the bottom of this document here where it says the $6 million in remaining ACDF ARPA must be committed by December 31st, 2024. Am I correct? And that's the same for our money? I guess this is to Attorney Pruitt, but I believe that we have the same exact time restraint that the ACC Gov does.
Honestly, I'd have to go back and look, because the ARPA money to the school districts is coming through totally different avenues, different requirements than the ARPA money to cities and counties. It came to the school districts in 3 different tranches, each with sort of their little hitches.
Okay. I would definitely like to get clarification on that as soon as possible, because, I mean, that's 18 months, no, it's 20 months away, which is not much time at all for us to actually have a plan with all the monies committed. That timeline is coming fast, if that is true, so I would definitely.
And I think that was their point too, like it sort of seems far off, but we probably need to, if we want to do something different or something more intentional, we probably need to figure out what we're going to do with the remaining funds. Dr. Hooker?
Yes, I will ask Mr. Schoeneman, does he have any further information to share with us?
I believe the deadline to encumber our ESSER money is September 30th of 2024. I don't think it all has to be spent by then, but just you have to either encumber it with a salary or have a vendor and a known contract to expend it. I would have to defer to Dr. Elder to kind of more eloquently describe that, but our deadline is September 30th of 2024.
Thank you.
And related to that, one of the things that was mentioned at the meeting is, as Dr. Moore put down here, this $6 million of ACC government's ARPA funds, that is what they would like to collaborate on. They aren't requiring Clark County to say, well, we are going to then match this. Now, they are open to that, you know, if we have funds, but that wasn't, that certainly wasn't a requirement to enter into this partnership. They just want to figure out in a way that I think best represents our community. They want to put communities and heads together to decide.
I'll just say one more thing if I can, Madam Chair. That I definitely think that it's prudent for us to think about this money as when we talk about trying to have things that can be community changing. This kind of lump sum money that came through ARPA is kind of a once in a generation kind of money. And it also has flexibility that other funds that we receive do not. And so I would really think it's best for us to really try to be bold and not just use this money maybe to fill gaps of everyday kind of things, but really try to, and I think that's what the ACC is trying to do when they put these buckets in and put that $7.5 million towards youth development, is that this isn't going to happen again. And I'd love for us to take advantage of this to do some real bold change that we can use this money that we're just not going to have the opportunity to ever again.
All right, thank you. And so we'll get this information sent out in an update. I am going to ask that you start considering the information, and then we'll consider placing it as an agenda item for our May meeting for discussion for that work set. Well, wait, are we in? Yeah, for the May meeting, for discussion for that work session. But as you're thinking about this, if you have any questions, like of information that you need, you know, for instance, if you're like, well, how much money do we have? Or, you know, although we are working, really, we're talking about ACC Gov's money, just any other questions that you might have related to this as we move towards that work session, feel free to send those to me and I'll share them with Dr. Hooker, or you can send them directly to Dr. Hooker. And that way, if it's information that we need from ACC Gov, we'll have time to get that information. So more to come, but just wanted to give you an update on that meeting yesterday. Thank you, Dr. Moore. Okay, so we'll move forward with the superintendent's report. Dr. Hooker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to start off this afternoon's comments dealing with Mr. Schoeneman. This is his last budget presentation to us. His last official day with the district was the Friday before spring break. But we're fortunate to have with us Dr. Libby Whitaker serving as our interim CFO while we conduct a search for our next CFO. We're on the path to receive an award of distinction for excellence for our financial reporting in June. I will definitely like to thank Mr. Schoeneman and his team in his tenure here in the district. I believe we've received that award each year. Am I correct in saying that? It's something to be proud of. The work that he has done for this district has distinguished us among many other districts across the state, and we are fortunate to have him as our CFO for that number of years. So at this time, I would like to applaud he and his team's efforts. Thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Schoeneman. Also, congratulations to all of those recognized this evening. The Employee of the Month, Ms. Anna Chandler Myers, our Georgia Merit Scholar, Aiden Dowlings, our National History Day Regional Contest first place finishers, our young authors, district level winners, and thank you to Tanya Paramore and Christy Holloway from the Northeast Georgia RESA Growing Readers Program from joining us this afternoon. During our spring break time, the Assistant Principals Appreciation Week took place. Being that we were on spring break, we're taking this week to appreciate our assistant principals, and those of you on social media has noticed that Dr. Moore and her team has done a great job of recognizing all of our assistant principals throughout the district. They do a lot of the hard work that takes place at each school, and we want to say thank you to them for all of their hard work and dedication. Also, April is the month for School Library Month. We are recognizing that as well. Giving you an update, our Community Fun Day is Saturday, April the 22nd at Bishop Park from 2 to 4 p.m. Other information to share is our strategic planning listening sessions, and I will include this in our board update on tomorrow as well with more detailed information. But Sunday, April the 16th at 4 p.m., we will be at Tuxton United Methodist Church. Monday, April the 17th at 6 p.m., we will be at Clark Central Media Center. Tuesday, April the 18th, we will be at Cedar Show's cafeteria, that's at 6 p.m. And Wednesday, April the 19th, we will be at the Athens Clark County Library. And we have done a great job of putting that information out on social media, encouraging our parents and others to get involved and with our listening sessions. You will receive this plan of engagement in our Friday's update. Other information to share with you, update on renaming of our schools. We're in the process of notifying the Georgia Department of Education of renaming and beginning the process required to make those transitions. We put together a working document of all tasks related to this change. Tentative dates has been initiated for tasks, while others will depend on the Georgia Department of Education guidance. We will include the link to these tasks in tomorrow's update. You'll receive that on tomorrow. Update on PAB. I think each month, Dr. Yeager, you've asked us when our PAB meeting will take place. Sitting before you received a letter from our TAB president outlining that, but our next PAB, I'm sorry, I said TAB, but it's PAB, will be Tuesday, May the 2nd. I will send out an official invite to Dr. Hooker before the next week is out. That's included in the letter that you received from Mr. Omar Reed. Timeline for giving you an update on our charter school update. I had shared with you that mortgage movement, the movement mortgage charter program had reached out to us. Mr. Pruitt and myself met with those advisors. We have set a timeline for that, and I'll read those off to you. But Mr. James Ballerman has been intricately involved in this process as well. These dates also will be included in your Friday update. I just want the public to be aware of this as well. On April the 11th, meeting to discuss the movement charter petition. May the 4th, we will have a board work session. Mr. Ballerman and Mr. Pruitt will provide initial analysis of the movement of the charter petition. BOE will provide feedback. May the 11th, our board meeting, we need to conduct a panel interview with the movement movement around this time, likely to be the week of May the 8th through the 12th. June the 1st, that's our meeting, the BOE combined meeting. BOE approves the response to the movement. Mr. Ballerman and Mr. Pruitt will provide for a final analysis of the movement charter petition after the BOE feedback. And during our leadership, meaning the district office leadership retreat, we will provide an update to our administrators. June 15th will be the deadline for the board-approved response to the movement mortgage petition. Last item I want to share with you is about our budget. As outlined on the budget timeline approved during our last meeting, Mr. Schoeneman will share the proposed budget with you this evening. In keeping with the approved process, this will be a presentation only. There will be no opportunity this evening for public comment or board questions. However, Ms. Palmer has created a board question document for your convenience. Please list your questions regarding the budget in this document, and the staff will provide answers. Please confirm a time for next week with Ms. Palmer for the board member budget sessions. That concludes my comments for today, and I'm sorry. Usually I'm very brief, but today I wanted to give you all of that information. All right? Questions to me? Thank you.
All right, we'll move forward. Thank you for those updates, and we look forward to receiving that information. And you mentioned the document for questions for the budget. It's gonna be a separate one, or is it already been shared? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Palmer.
All right, we are going to move forward with our presentations and discussions. Dr. Hooker?
All right, at this time, we will ask Mr. Schoeneman to present the budget proposal. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker. Good evening, board members. But before I start, I'd just like to thank you, Dr. Hooker, for those kind words. Just a reminder about that financial award that we received. It is not a Byron Schoeneman Award. It is definitely reflective of our organization. The Department of Audits comes in, and during that audit, they spend, I think it was close to 900 man-hours kind of going through our books, testing federal programs. They looked at all of our ESSER funds. I believe they looked at Title I as well as school food. So it's not just a financial audit that they're going in and looking at the financial statements. They're also testing our federal programs, our processes and procedures and internal controls. So it really is an organizational award, not just a finance award. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that, and it's something that you guys can definitely be proud of. So tonight, we're going to discuss the preliminary FY24 budget. So what we have before you is just kind of in a first read state of the budget. We have our proposed headcount or positions at all of the schools and all of our departments finalized. We've met with all of the departments throughout the district and done a line item departmental operational budgets. And so what you have before you is it's going to be a baseline budget, and then we're also going to talk about some of the initiatives that have been kind of pushed down from the state level, as well as some of the initiatives that we have put together and kind of have rudimentary numbers on. And the meetings that Dr. Hooker spoke of are really intended for board members to come in and lend their input. A prime example was the discussion in public comment about the rock wall. SPLOST isn't the only bucket that can pay for this rock wall. We can also look at funding it with the Gen Fund. So if we were at the end of SPLOST 5 and the amount of funds that we could potentially earmark towards other stuff, if there's a possibility that those funds might run out, we can always look at Gen Fund and putting it in the FY24 budget. And as you can see, as we go through this budget, there will likely be property tax digest capacity to pay for such project. So what we're going to focus on tonight is the general fund. The FY24 fiscal year, just a reminder, it starts July 1st, 2023, and it runs for the next 12 months through June 30th, 2024. Our gen fund is our largest bucket. Keep in mind that we do have several dozens of other funds that we operate. Anything in the 2XX series is going to be our debt service. Capital projects and SPLOST are going to be in funds 3XX. Federal programs, 4XX. All of our principal school accounts are going to be in 5. And then our school food accounts are going to be housed in 6XX. So what we're going to focus on tonight is just our general fund. And when we're thinking about building a budget, there's no one right way to go about it, but one way that GDOE recommends, and it's in their LUA manual, is starting out building a budget and saying, hey, here's the resources that we're going to need. We anticipate this level of expenditures for salaries and benefits, this level of expenditures for operations, so we know how much we're going to project spending. Then from there, we're going to back out the anticipated revenues through QBE, through our state funds, and then also back out other non-property tax revenue. And what you're left with is the amount that local property taxes are going to have to pick up. So I think it's a great way to approach the budget. And as you'll following along with this presentation, it is structured in this exact format. So starting off, we're going to look at the rudimentary budget, that first read that we have. We're going to talk about basically, here's the baseline. We're going to go over those initiatives. There's going to be those state initiatives that are basically mandated that CCSD pick up. They will provide some funding, but not all, as you'll see. And then we also have some CCSD local initiatives that we'd like to share with you. After that, we'll go over the QBE and non-property tax derived revenue, and then finally we'll wrap it up with the local property tax digest information. So here is our baseline budget for FY24. In it, we've got all the salaries and benefits for the projected positions. This is with a step increase, but it does not include any other salary or benefit adjustments other than just stepping employees. It also has all of the operational costs that are associated with all the schools and all the departments in there. So baseline budget, we're looking at $190.5 million. The budget that the board approved last year was about $189.3 million, so there's less than a 1% growth in here in terms of the baseline budget. And some of those, that 1% growth, we have 2 items in there that are actually state initiative that are showing up in this baseline budget, which more than encompass that 1% or less than 1% growth. The first state initiative that we're going to talk about, I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about, is the state health benefit cost increase. Effective, I believe, they were talking about January 1st. I think it's actually going to be effective in February, is the increase for state or for certified employees. So for all of our teachers, all of our certified employees that we have throughout the district, the cost that CCSD bears for insuring that employee is going to rise from $945 per month up to $1,580 per month. So for next year's budget, for each insured employee that we have that is certified, it's going to be an increased cost of $7,620. So that's rather significant. It's over a 60% increase in terms of state health cost for the district. We will receive some monies back through the QBE formula to pay for some of this increase, but not all. So if you multiply that $7,620 times our number of projected certified employees, it's an $8.8 million increase to the budget. So although we have that baseline budget, which is almost perfectly in line with last year's budget, this is one of the increases to the budget that is unavoidable. We cannot avoid this increase to the budget. Classified is also going to go up. It's not as immediate, and it's going to be tiered in over the next 4 years. So starting in January 1st of 2024, the cost per month per insured employee is going to rise from $945 per month up to $1,195 per month. So that's going to cover the second half of the fiscal year, basically. So if you're looking at the increased per person cost for the classified employees, it's going to be, we're budgeting $1,500 for each employee. So you multiply that out by the number of insured, and you're looking at $900,000 there. So you combine the increased cost for certified, the increased cost for classified, that's almost a $9.7 million budget increase just due to state health. The second increase that we're going to see is due to the GNET's closure that is basically in our backyard, where we're going to, I think we have, I wish I had Ms. Heidi Hill here tonight, but it's either 12 or 13 students that we have that were housed at Rutland. And due to the law change, we're having to bring those students back and serve them within our district. And the cost to do so, I think we paid a fee of maybe $70,000 to Rutland to provide the service for these students throughout the year. We're going to have to hire 4 teachers and 8 paras and possibly displace some classrooms in some schools in order to provide room to provide these services. So the cost of those 4 teachers, 8 paras, and trailer rentals is going to reach nearly $1 million that we're going to have to spend just due to the closure of that facility and us now having to provide those services in-house. The governor also proposed, and it was approved in the FY24 budget, a $2,000 salary increase for all teachers and certified employees. There was also a 5.1% salary increase for nutrition workers, bus drivers, and school nurses, and a $1,000 increase for custodians. The reason I have the bottom 2 in red is because the CCSD recommendations that we're going to share with you are going to go over and above the $1,000 salary increase for custodians and the 5.1% increase for other classified employees. So this is just to share what the state initiatives are. We have them in red because we're going to go over and above what is being proposed by the state. A few initiatives that we've proposed is extending that $2,000 that all certified employees are going to get to all classified workers as well. And then also, one thing that we are considering, and Dr. Hooker put forth, is a $2,000 additional COLA to all staff. And this is something that we'd like to bring you to the table to discuss, to show you what the cost is going to be and the amount of millage, basically, that we're going to have to utilize in order to pay for that cost of living increase to all staff. Another initiative that we have is a 403B employer match for PSERS employees. Keep in mind, these are our bus drivers, our custodians, our school food workers that don't qualify for TRS. So we're looking at providing a 403B match to them as opposed to paying 19.98% to TRS for them. So right off the bat, they would qualify for that 403B match. We're also looking at extending the certified salary scale up to 25 steps. Dr. Blankenship, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're at 20. How many steps do we have currently in the certified salary schedule? So it goes up to 21 plus years, and we are going to recommend it going up to 25 years? Okay. Okay, so 2 additional steps, and we'll share the cost for that. We're also looking at providing a movement out of general fund into a capital projects fund to help address some of the deferred maintenance that we have throughout the district. And then there's also going to be a cost associated with the school renaming. So looking at the cost of all these budget increases, the state initiatives, that state health benefit increase, the GNET change, the salary increases that we spoke of, that's going to run roughly $14.7 million. the CCSD initiatives that we just spoke of, the additional $2,000 match, up to a $2,000 COLA, the 403B match, extended certified steps, deferred maintenance, and school renaming is going to cost an additional $8.5 million. So all in all, the state initiatives and CCSD initiatives together is going to add to that baseline budget $23.3 million. Next in order, we're going to talk about our QBE and non-property tax revenue. Our quality basic education funds, it's going to be based off of a slight decrease of FTE. So it's gone down from 12,142 students down to 11,876 students, which represents a 2.19% reduction. Although the FTE is going down, QBE is also providing us with funds for a $2,000 increase to teachers, and they're also providing additional funds to offset the state health increase. So between 23 and 24, we are seeing an increase in QBE funds, but not nearly enough to completely offset the increased cost that CCSD is going to encounter. So here's our assumptions: 2.19% decrease in FTE. There's no austerity that's going to be assessed in FY24. The TRS employer contribution is going to remain at 19.98%. They're going to fund a $2,000 increase for earned positions. And where we're really going to get hurt is our local fair share, our 5 mil withholding. And if you just went to the new board member training, each school system in the state of Georgia is assessed a 5 mil share. So whatever the value of 5 mils are, they withhold that from your QBE formula. And it is, the way they calculate that 5 mil share, it's basically a year in arrears. So if you recall last year's budget season, our property tax digest increased over 18%. We are actually being penalized in that, in next year's budget by over $3 million. See that local fair share that's going to be withheld from the QBE formula. It's going from 23.8 million up to 26.8 million. And then finally, the state health benefit increase is going up from 945 to 1560. So all of that is our assumptions with the QBE formula, and we're betting on a preliminary right now $78.9 million. Keep in mind that GDOE has not sent out their initial QBE estimates. We should get that within the next couple weeks. So just in terms of our budget schedule, when we meet with you in the small group settings, hopefully we'll have some of this more nailed down. We should have a more accurate QBE figure. We'll get more accurate consolidation sheets from the tax commissioner and stuff of that nature. So just year after year comparison with our QBE, FY23 we got $72.4 million. FY24 we're initially counting on $78.9 million. That's an increase of almost $6.5 million. Our other revenues, other non-tax derived revenues, they're going to increase just slightly, but for the most part, roughly the same. So FY23, 11.475 million, going up to 11.745 million, so an increase of 300,000. Now our property tax digest. I've had conversations with both our chief appraiser as well as tax commissioner, and we can comfortably build our budget off of a 10% increase in our tax digest. It could potentially be more and will likely be a lot more than 10%, but we feel comfortable just looking at the revenue that could be raised off of a 10% digest growth. So just keep in mind, as we're going to present the amount of revenue that we could bring in, it's based off of 20 mills, the full 20 mills at a 10% tax digest growth. So looking at our last 5 years, the first year that we were able to reduce our millage rate was last year. We brought it down from 20 down to 18.8, and we still brought in $108.9 million. And you can see the value of that 1 mil there. It jumped up from 4.9 up to 5.8 mils. And that's the reason that local fair share also we're going to get penalized more next year, is because the value of that 1 mil jumped so substantially. So next year, right now, what we're looking at, that bottom row, if we assessed a millage rate of 20 mils, obviously that's to be determined at this point, we could raise up to $128.4 million. So that's almost an additional $20 million that we could raise through property taxes. So next we're going to get into our summary. So overall, up at the top, we've got our baseline budget, $190 million, $190.5 million. After that, we're going to back out our QBE and our other local revenue, and they're highlighted in yellow. We've got the total amount that we could raise through a 10% increase in our digest and assessing the full 20 mills. That could go up to $128.4 million. If we did that, the revenue over our baseline budget would be $28.5 million. So that $28.5 million is really what's available to pay for any kind of initiatives that we have, either state initiatives or local initiatives. So if you then back out the state initiatives of $13.7 million and CCSD initiatives of $7.5 million, there's still a remaining taxing capacity of up to $7.3 million. So I'm just going to sit there for a minute, because this really is the summary of the presentation. Baseline budget of $190.5 million. We've got a revenue capacity of $219 million. So our revenues over the baseline, $28.5 million. Then you back out those initiatives that we spoke of, and we've got a remaining capacity of $7.3 million. Now, where we are in this overall timeline, I feel really good about where we are. We have all of our personnel set, and I think this is actually a really great process to now then invite the board to come have discussions with the superintendent and other members of cabinet into what else we would like to see in this budget. What do we not like to see? What do we want to spend less on? And really provide us your input and opinion on this budget. I think it's a great way to come in and let Dr. Hooker know what types of changes you'd prefer to see in there. We have done this in the past. It's been in different formats every year. You know, some years we've tried to get the entire board together. Last year we had a challenging time getting all the board members together. I think we didn't have a quorum, so we didn't end up holding these meetings. But every year, you know, we're constantly getting the input of how does the board provide their input on this budget. I just encourage you to take full advantage of these meetings and let Dr. Hooker know, you know, what your opinions are, what you'd like to see added, what you'd like to see decreased. So next step, there's going to be those 3 BOE input sessions. After that, and maybe in conjunction with that, we'll get updated QBE figures from the state through GDOE. We'll also get preliminary tax digest information through those consolidated sheets from the tax commissioner. And then hopefully after your input, we'll be able to weave together a more accurate and precise budget that we'll present to you in May. And then once that's presented and approved in May, it becomes your tentative budget. After the tentative budget is approved, you then have to have at least 2 more budget presentations and hearings to the public, and that is when the public has their opportunity to come in and provide feedback to not only administration, but also the board on what they like or don't like about the budget. This is their opportunity to come in and weigh in on the budget. And in conjunction with that, there's also 3 millage rate hearings if that's required. So between May and June, we have to have those meetings. And then finally, and ideally in June, the initial budget will be passed. So that's the FY24 initial read of the budget, and I'd like to turn it back over to Dr. Hooker.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonerman, for that detailed budget presentation. Again, I ask of you, board members, to please reply to Ms. Palmer's email outlining our meetings concerning the budget. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker and Mr. Schoonerman. We'll move forward to item 13. These are our policies for board review. And I noticed that I think there were 4 that were there. Any additional information or context that you are?
No.
Okay. All right, so we will start. I'll just open the floor with our policies that we have here. Were there any thoughts that you all have about these specific policies? We had the purchasing, DJE, and then we had policy EEE, which is the wellness program, and then board policy IDE2, competitive interscholastic activities, and then that 4th one was board policy IFCD, school volunteers. So we'll start with policy DJE. Were there any questions, or is there any follow-up conversation about these policies? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Just no.
No,
I was
okay.
saying no.
All right. And then we have policy IDE. This is our one for competitive interscholastic activities.
Just a comment, I appreciated the revision. There was always a question as to why the 6th graders weren't able to participate just only able to participate in intramural sports. So I appreciated that change.
Yeah, really quickly, I second that. I've been going to the elementary sporting events, and the way it's brought the community together has been pretty amazing. And so I think starting out those middle schoolers being able to play sports in 6th grade is going to be, it's going to help also continue to bring the school communities together. Along with the elementary thing, I love it. It should stay too.
All right. There are no other comments for that policy. We will, what about board policy EEE, and this is our wellness program. Dr. Anderson?
Is the district wellness committee, has it already convened? Has it already formed? And is, okay. Just wasn't sure. Thank you.
Any additional? I did have a quick question. In the policy, it talked about the smart snacks and like the school nutrition and I think all of this was new. So it was additional, I think, what was in green, right? I think so.
Yes, Ms. Bonace, would you respond to that?
So this looks like a substantial rewrite. It is taking a lot of what was in the regulation and putting it into the policy so it complies with the model policy, but most of it is not new as to the requirements.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just wonder if this, I know last year and times before we've had students advocate for different options for food and for lunch and all of those different things. And I know this spoke to like fundraisers and the type of food that is served and the smart snack standards. And so I guess my question would be, well, actually, this actually goes out for review. This is just for our review, right? So this would go out for the public to see.
Correct. All of these on this item are out for public comment for between now and the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I think that'll answer the question. Hopefully that'll be an opportunity for the public to weigh in. All right, and then the last board policy is IFCD. Thank you. School volunteers. Any follow-up discussion or question? All right. Okay. We'll move forward to our action items and discussion. The first action item are our March 2nd work session minutes, March 6th call meeting minutes, and March 9th board minutes. The floor is open for a motion.
I move that we approve item 14.1.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hall, second by Mr. Denson. Any follow-up discussion to those? Yes, sure. All right. Any follow-up questions about the meeting minutes? And just for the public's awareness, we were trying to figure out if we would bunch some of these items together, and so we'll do that after this. But we have a motion, a second, no follow-up discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes, the March 2nd, March 6th, and March 9th minutes, if you would raise your hands and say aye. 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 Any opposed, the same signs? Okay, that passes. That motion carries. All right, so we have about 15 or 14 more items. The floor is open for a motion to approve either this next item or any combined items. Oh, sorry. Dr. Anderson and then Dr. Yeager.
Could I start with a motion that we move all items to the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, and you mean all of the, is that item?
Sorry, items 2 through 15. Items 2 through 15. I'd like to start with the motion that we move them to consent agenda.
Just a parliamentary inquiry, I think we'd have to take a vote to amend the agenda for us to be able to do that.
This is not a work session, this is a board meeting.
I'm sorry, Dr. Yeager?
This is not a work session, this is a board meeting.
Right.
It's already on the agenda.
Mr. Pruitt, do we have to, if we want a bunch of items together under the action items, do we have to have a motion to suspend rules and turn this basically into a consent agenda?
No, not in my experience. Normally how that's been handled where I've seen it is if there's board consensus on a number of items, then somebody just makes a motion to approve all of those as a consent agenda. But keeping in mind that, again, just by custom, I think more than anything else, even if one member objects to anything being on a consent agenda, then it's voted on separately.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a motion to have all of these, that would be items 2 through 15 on a consent agenda, and we had a second. Was that by Ms. Hull? Okay, we have that motion by Dr. Anderson, a second by Ms. Hull. The floor is open for discussion on that motion.
So
Dr. Yeager?
I was hoping we could talk a little bit about the policy that's up for approval.
Okay.
we had a lot of public comment about the recess policy, and this is the recess policy that's going forward. So I was going to see if the district wanted to vote. I mean, so we had, there's, sorry, breath. The new policy still allows for some taking away of break time by students. And we had a lot of public feedback on that. And I just wanted the district to have an opportunity to address, or have us an opportunity to address why we're passing it still.
Okay, and so it sounds like you may want to remove item 2. Is that what I hear you saying? Okay, and Mr. Pruitt, if I heard you correctly, we sort of treat this like a consent agenda.
Yeah, normally we sort of have the discussion before the motion, but yeah, I think after your discussion here, anything anybody wants taken off, let's just ask, and I don't remember who made the motion in the second, but ask them to amend the motion and second to take those off.
Okay. All right, so we have Dr. Yeager's question about number 2. Any additional questions or thoughts? I would ask that that we remove item 14. If the board is okay with that, so that we could vote on that separately. Okay. Are there any additional items here? Dr. Yeager?
Oh, I know the school resource officer vote is sometimes controversial. I don't know whether that means we need to pull it off or not.
Okay.
10.
Okay, and so if there are questions or you feel that there need to be follow-up discussion.
I don't personally have any questions, but I just, historically, we've done it by itself.
I would support that, pulling it off at least, and if we just vote on it separately. All right, so Dr. Anderson, you were the original motion maker, and so would you be willing to make an amendment to that motion?
Sure. I'd like to make an amendment to the motion to pull items 2 through 15 to a consent agenda, to pulling items 3 through...
2.
What?
3 is the financial report. I think you meant 2.
Well, I was going to... Okay. All right, I've moved... I was just going to state it differently.
Okay,
so now I'm
go ahead.
confused.
Nope.
Now I'm
Go ahead.
confused.
State it
Okay.
originally how
So
you were going to.
I would like to amend my motion to pull items 2, 10, and 14 from the consent agenda for separate vote, but keep the other items as a consent agenda items.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to remove items 2, 10, and 14 from that original motion that made this a consent, and we have a second by Ms. Hull. Any follow-up discussion before we take action on that amended motion? Okay, all in favor of removing items 2, 10, and 14 and approving the remaining items, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same signs? Okay. So all of the items under our action items and discussion have been approved unanimously. That leaves us number 2. These are our policies to adopt they have not. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for that clarification. Dr. Anderson said that we voted to remove them, but we did not vote to approve them. Okay, thank you. And so those items have been removed. I apologize for that. The floor is open for a motion then to approve all of the items under the action items and discussion except 2, 10, and 14.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Anderson. Excuse me, we have a motion by Ms. Hull and then a second by Ms. Anderson. Any follow-up discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the items listed with the exception of 2, 10, and 14, if you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. Now, those items are approved. So we will go back to number 2. These are our policies to adopt and or rescind. We have our recess and unstructured break time policy that is here. IEDA, that's right. Is there any follow-up information that we need before I open the floor for a motion, Dr. Hooker?
Yes, I'll ask Ms. Bonet to speak to that, please.
This policy was out for public comment in October, and we received 3 public comment at that time. This revision does change the sentence where it says exceptions may be made. The sentence about being withheld. It says recess may not be withheld. That is a change may not be withheld. However, the exceptions, there are exceptions if a student causes a safety risk. That sentence is also new. So there is a change with the exception. Participation in recess is to be provided and may not be withheld for disciplinary or academic reasons. That is different than the policy is written now, which says it may be withheld. The current policy indicates it may be withheld. This rewrite says it may not be withheld for disciplinary or academic reasons.
For the grade school.
For elementary.
For elementary school.
Correct, and this policy provides for middle school principals to allow for an unstructured break time, but it does not require an unstructured break time in the middle school.
I appreciate the improvement, but I don't think it's consistent with at least what I've heard board members saying about what we want to say about recess, but can we move it up for public opinion one more time since it's been changed since the last time it went for public opinion?
So it has already gone out for public comment, and so it is, the changes were made as a result of that public comment, and so this is the proposed policy based on that public comment.
Okay, and so might I open the floor for a motion and then we do some discussions? Okay. The floor is open.
I will make a motion for us to hold this item until our May meeting and be able to take, so that we can take public comment for 1 extra month and for us to all be, yeah.
Okay, and actually, I don't think we have a motion on the table right now. So is that your motion, Mr.
Yeah, my
Dixon?
motion is for us to hold this item until our May meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Pruitt, will you speak to that, please, concerning putting it back out for public comment?
Well, sure, that's the board's discretion. I was actually going to ask Mr. Denson if he intended that to be part of his motion, to put it back out, post it back on the website, I guess, during this intervening month.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's the board's discretion if they want to.
And so I hear 2 parts to the motion. One is to postpone this action or place this on our May agenda, and then also to put this particular policy back out for public comment. Is that your motion, Mr. Denson?
Yeah, basically to add it on to our policies for board review that we already have. And so it'll go into public comment with this final draft, yes. And I'll speak further to it after, if there's a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to add this item to the other policies for public review by Mr. Denson, and then we have a second by Dr. Yeager. Was it? Okay. All right. Before we take a vote on that, the floor is open for further discussion. Mr. Denson, I'm going to start with you since you made the motion, and then we'll...
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just briefly, and just being consistent, say, with the other one that we did last month, that there was a change and we decided to hold it for another month. Because I understand that these changes were made from feedback that we received from the community, and and I appreciate that us doing that, but still those other folks, besides maybe those 3, hadn't seen this final draft, so it still gives time for the entire community to be able to read this, because my understanding, right, is that this version was just posted on our agenda as of Friday, correct? So I would just like to have it be consistent so that this exact version wording will be on for review, just like all the rest of our policies.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Denson. Ms. Hull, do you have any feedback?
I'm just concerned that we're kind of getting into that murky area, and so I would just caution us. We have followed our process in terms of policy, and how it is supposed to go, and how it's supposed to flow before approval. The changes have been made, and we have a recommendation, so I would just caution us to not not direct the district. So I'll say it like that, not to direct the district, not in terms of, I guess I'm trying to say we have a policy, we had concerns that went out, they made the proposals, and if we continue to keep hammering at this, we're crossing into that line of telling them how to operate and do recess instead of giving them the discretion to implement the policy that we've written.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hull. I'm going to go to Mr. Evans. Dr. Evans, I'm sorry, do you have any?
Yeah, I'm confused on why we're holding this up. So if someone could please enlighten me on why we need to do this, because I've heard nothing from anyone of my constituency about this. So I'm just, if someone could please tell me why we're not voting on this tonight, I would appreciate that.
Okay. And can we hold that question? And I want to circle back around to be sure everyone has a chance to share their thoughts, and then Dr. Yeager will circle back around to you. I'll share my thoughts last. Dr. Anderson, go ahead.
So if memory serves, the public asked for us to not revoke recess because of academic or classroom discipline. And so when we had our last discussion, the thing that was, I think, still on the plate was if the student violates code of conduct, is a safety risk to themselves or others. And so the district had an opportunity at that time to explain why they left that language in there. And I thought as a board that we heard that and we agreed to move on. And so I'm worried about why we're now throwing it back out to the public when we had this discussion a couple of months ago and understood that the reason that they left in that language was because of safety risk to themselves or others, violation of student code of conduct. That's the only exception here of removing recess rights. And so we knew this.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Ms. Hensley.
I think Dr. Anderson covered it.
Okay. Ms. Butts.
I agree. I think Dr. Anderson covered it.
Okay. And if I may add, and then we'll go back to the questions, I do support, I am going to support this motion, one, because if I'm looking at the updated version of this, it reads that recess, well, right under the definition where it starts to talk about recess, it says that the school principal is still authorized to determine the length, frequency, timing, and location of recess of each school. And while I think that is certainly within the principal's purview, I think the spirit of the comments that we received, we wanted to be sure that students were not getting recess taken away. And so I think the language is still vague enough to contradict. So basically, if I determine the time, then that still gives me the authority to say, Dr. Anderson, you're going to have 30 minutes of recess. But if there's a student over here who might be misbehaving, then that student may have 10 minutes of recess. I'm not saying, I want to be very clear, I don't think our principals and our district is doing that, but I think that was, to me, I think that was the spirit of the comments. And when we also discussed this, one of the things that I advocated for was a particular time. While we know that Georgia has a law requiring recess, inside of this, I can't remember where I saw it at. I think it said that we could determine the time according to what was determined by the state. Trying to figure out where I saw that at. I think I'm in the right version of this. And I just want to be sure that I don't think we have to tell the district how to do things, but I think your policies are parameters. And we know that children need time to play. And so I am still advocating for time and for language that prevents recess from being able to be taken away, that doesn't necessarily contradict itself in here. I am very appreciative of the work that has been done, and I'm going to go with the will of the board on this, but I wanted to give some context for my vote. We'll circle back this second round to Dr. Yeager. Did I hear your microphone?
Ms. Boe, did you have a comment?
Just one point, the policy, once it has gone out for public comment, the revisions are made and then we vote. Typically, so if there are revisions, that is what we're bringing forth to the board as the proposal. If we had every policy after revisions were made that were going out for public comment, we may have several rounds of this. To Ms. Hall's point. The other part is that there were 3 public comments that we received through the public comment, and I can share, those were shared a couple of weeks ago in the board update, but I can share them again with you as well. And so those recommendations were part of what drove the change from breaks may be withheld to breaks may not be withheld. The other part of the exceptions were driven by the third public comment, which was about, which was from administrators and how we can make sure that there is still safety on the playground. So I will just, to Dr. Gamp's point, it does say that recess must be scheduled at all elementary schools every day, the proposed policy.
Thank you. So I think everyone has spoken. We have a motion on the floor. Dr. Yeager, I'm circling back around to you for our second round in case there's any follow-up.
I guess I'm taking exception to the paragraph about unstructured break time for middle school. It says, if scheduled, participation in unstructured break time may be withheld for academic or disciplinary reasons. I think that sentence is inconsistent with my belief and my preference for what this board should set as policy, so I will be voting no on this policy.
Okay. All right, well, right now we have a motion on the floor to place this policy for public review, place this policy with the policies in May and take action in May. I think we had a motion and a second. And so I have not heard any substitute motion, so I'm going to move forward and ask that if you are in favor of moving this item to May so that we will be able to receive additional public comment, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. I'm sorry, Dr. Yeager? All right, so we have, and those that are opposed to moving this item to public comment, to get more information from May, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So, oh, I'm sorry. I voted. Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so we have a 4-4. Does that mean the motion fails, Mr. Pruitt?
Yes, motion fails and floor is open for another motion.
Okay, floor is open for another motion.
I move that we adopt this policy as presented.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hall. We have a motion to adopt the policy as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Evans. Dr. Evans, the floor is open for further discussion.
I did have a point of question for Dr. Hooker. Would this be, after hearing the board's concerns about the language that is still in there, is it possible for you to author or draft a regulation that would speak to some of these concerns and put more parameters on the actual implementation of this policy moving forward?
That's something we can discuss as a district. Mr. Pruitt, if I'm not mistaken, is it necessary for us to put in regulations concerning that?
Oh, no, there's no legal requirement for regulations.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Ms. Hall, did that answer your question?
It didn't.
Okay.
Because I know there's no legal requirement, but in
Right.
trying to strike the balance between the concerns that I hear my colleagues speaking of and not wanting to have that down, I was imagining a medium that would provide more structure in terms of how this policy is actually implemented. And so I know that we do not vote on regulations, and the regulations are drafted to make decisions about how to implement it. So I was wondering if that could be some type of solution to get us to move forward to vote on the policy tonight.
Ms. Hall, we'll be glad to work on the regulations to address those concerns that you've outlined.
Thebomb.com. Thank you, Dr. Hooker.
Appreciate you.
Okay, any additional discussion? Mr. Evans, Dr. Evans, Dr. Anderson, Ms. Hensley, Ms. Butts, Dr. Yeager.
I was just saying, I mean, my only concern again still is just, I think part of it's because of the oddity of our meeting time with these being put up. I mean, normally, even with a policy that I understand has been reviewed and been revised and coming back, it normally would be put up on the agenda, say the week before. We'd go through the work session week, we'd come back, would be up for basically about 2 weeks. Because of the nature of the meeting tonight, this has only been out in the public for 6 days. And so it has not had its normal amount of time, even within that process that we have established, the normal amount of vetting time it normally would. So I do have concerns that there's probably, and also it's, of course, last week was spring break too. So I definitely have concerns that there's probably some of the people who are maybe concerned about this issue who are not very familiar with this policy at all that we're voting on it tonight in the scene here. So, but it is what it is.
Thank you, Mr. Denson. Dr. Evans.
Can I ask a question of staff, Dr. Hooker? What I would like to know is this true 6 days? I thought it went out in October and that we got public comment in the fall. So it's been out in the public for a bit. I just want to make sure that the timeline is correct, because if it is 6 days.
But we've been discussing this policy since October 2022. We've had at least 2 other board meetings concerning this issue. We pulled it off the table, revised it, met with principals, as well as got other additional information. Ms. Bonace, do you have, because you led this charge, did I miss anything?
No, that's correct. The original version went out in October. It was on November. We did not end up voting on it. We did not vote on it in December either. This is the revised policy, and I think Mr. Denson is saying this went out on the meeting agenda a week ago, and so this version of the policy has been available to review for 7 days since the work session agenda But this has not been on public comment, meaning on the internet through Assembly for public comment, this version. However, this version is the result of public comment from October, and this is the proposed revision based on that.
Madam Chair, may I ask a follow-up, please? So,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Okay. So the green is the stuff that we did not, that hasn't been touched, right? And that the red is what we've stricken, is that correct? Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, well, we will go ahead and take a vote. So we have a motion on the floor to approve this policy as written. All in favor of adopting policy IEDA, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Okay, all opposed, if you would show the same signs. Aye. Okay, so that motion passes. The recess policy passes. We are going to move forward to item 10. And this is our agreement between ACC Unified Government and the Clark County School District with our SRO program. Is there any additional information, Dr. Hooker?
I would like to share with you this partnership that we're continuing with our Athens Clark County Police Department. If you look throughout the years, we've had a great partnership with our Athens Clark County policemen. They've conducted training with our police department, policemen as well. They have built relationships with our students within the district. I was here 13 years as a principal. I did not see as a principal that we had any major issues with our officers. If there were any issues, we were able to go to the chief to resolve those issues. If I've only been here 7 or 8 months, Mr. Salt and I have a regular conversation concerning our partnership. How can we improve that? I'm asking that the board approves this partnership. It has been a great partnership, continues to build throughout the community, and working on resources as to how we can better our relationships with our students outside of school by placing our police officers to assist in coaching our students in activities outside of school. So I'm asking you to vote in favor of this policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hooker. The floor is open for a motion.
Make a motion that we recommend that, yeah.
Second.
Okay, what was your motion? To approve?
Yes.
Okay.
I got tongue-tied, I'm sorry.
Right. We have a motion to approve, and then a second by Ms. Hull. All right, floor is open for discussion. I'll start with you, Dr. Evans.
Do you really want to start with me?
Yes.
Because I can't speak, evidently. I do maybe have a question that maybe, I'm curious about activities that happen off of school grounds. I heard from a constituent who had a situation. And so I'm curious if we could maybe get some sort of structure on some of the actual duties and responsibilities of SROs and what they are going to do and what they are not going, what other legal things that they may not be doing. Like, for instance, should they be serving warrants? Should they be, giving out TROs? Those are things that I would like to explore. I think that this is a contract, it's a good one, it's a necessary one, especially in the times that we live in, unfortunately. And so that's why it's going to get my approval, but I would like to have that conversation to talk about roles and responsibilities of our SROs and make sure that they're in compliance with what we want from those who are in our schools.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Dr. Anderson, do you have any follow-up questions or?
I do not.
Okay, Ms. Hensley, Ms. Butts?
I do not.
Okay, Dr. Yeager? Mr. Denson? Okay. Ms. Hull? Okay. All in favor of approving the ACC Unified Government and Clark County School District SRO program contract, if you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same signs. Okay, that motion carries, and we are now at item 14. And this is a contract for sale of the Hill Street property. The floor is open for a motion.
I move that we adopt.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Hensley.
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Ms. Hull. Okay, any follow-up general discussion here?
I'm sorry, what was the motion? To approve?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah. All right. There, Mr. Denson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know there had been some discussion before about, other possibilities that could be done here. And obviously, this isn't the time for us to do that, talk about this for this property. But I do think that that conversation is an important one for this board to have. One of the very important assets that a school district has is its property. And it is one of the times that we have some ability to shape what our community looks like in a very impactful way. So I do think that is for future times, and I understand that we don't have any of that happening right now, but in future times, I think it is prudent for this body to think about how we could be using our properties in a way that will bring about the most positive impact for our community, rather than just maybe simply selling. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Denson. Seeing that there are no additional, don't see any hands, all in favor of approving the contract for the sale of the Hill Street property, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Okay. Any opposed? The same signs. Aye. Okay, so it looks like that motion passes. Was it six? Was okay. No. Okay. Okay. So it's 5-3. Ms. Palmer, did you? Okay. All right. All right. So that motion does carry. We are at item 15, and this is adjournment. The floor is open.
So
I
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All right. All right. We have a motion by Ms. Hall, a second by Dr. Anderson. Seeing that there are no objections, we are